My wife lost her memory 3 years ago. Last Tuesday, I took her to see a neurologist in Asheville. When my daughter stepped out to take a call, the doctor's hands trembled as he leaned forward and whispered urgently, "You need to get your wife away from your daughter immediately." Before he could explain why, my daughter returned, clutching her designer purse with white knuckles and that same concerned smile she'd worn for months. Before telling you what happened next, like this video, subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you are listening to my story from. I want to know how far it has reached. 3 years ago, my wife Margaret was the sharpest woman I'd ever known. At 62, she could calculate restaurant tips in her head faster than I could pull out my phone. She never forgot an anniversary, a birthday, or where she'd placed her keys. She volunteered at the library every Wednesday, hosted book club meetings, and could quote passages from her favorite novels without hesitation. Then, almost overnight, everything changed. It started small. She'd pause mid-sentence, searching for a word that should have come easily. She'd ask me the same question twice in one conversation. I'd find her standing in the kitchen, staring at the coffee maker as if she'd never seen it before. "It's just stress," I told myself. "She's been working too hard at the library." But it got worse. Much worse. Within 6 months, Margaret couldn't remember what day it was. She'd forget entire conversations we'd had that morning. She started getting confused about where she was, even in our own home. The woman who'd raised our daughter Sarah, who'd built a successful career as a high school English teacher, who'd been my partner for 40 years, was disappearing before my eyes. I was 65 and retired from my job as an accountant. I'd always imagined these would be our golden years. We'd travel, spend time with grandchildren when they came along, maybe finally take that trip to Ireland we'd always talked about. Instead, I was watching my wife slip away, piece by piece, memory by memory. Sarah, our 34-year-old daughter, stepped in immediately. She'd always been close to her mother. An only child, she'd been the center of our world from the moment she was born. Smart, beautiful, with Margaret's green eyes and my stubborn determination, she'd graduated from college with honors, landed a good job in marketing in Charlotte, and we'd been so proud. "Dad, you can't do this alone," she said one evening about 2 years ago, sitting at our kitchen table. "Let me help. I can work remotely a few days a week. I'll come stay with you and Mom." I was grateful. No, I was more than grateful. I was relieved. The burden of caring for Margaret was crushing me. I barely slept. I was terrified to leave her alone for even a few minutes. The thought of having help, especially from our daughter, felt like a lifeline thrown to a drowning man. "Are you sure?" I asked. "What about your job?" "Your life in Charlotte." Sarah reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Her designer purse sat on the chair beside her, the same expensive leather bag she'd shown up with that first day. "Mom needs me," she said, her eyes glistening with tears. "We're family. This is what family does." So Sarah moved into our guest room. She took over scheduling Margaret's doctor appointments. She researched medications and treatments. She sat with her mother for hours, patient and kind. Even when Margaret didn't recognize her, I watched my daughter sacrifice her own life to help us, and my heart swelled with love and gratitude. She was everything a parent could hope for. Or so I thought. The medication routine started about 18 months ago. Dr. Phillips, our family physician at the time, prescribed a series of pills to help manage Margaret's symptoms. At least, that's what Sarah told me. She'd taken Margaret to most of her appointments by then. I was so exhausted, so overwhelmed, that I let her handle it. She was organized, capable, and Margaret seemed calmer when Sarah was the one administering the medications. "Mom takes the blue pill at 8 a.m., Sarah would explain, standing in our kitchen with her color-coded chart, the white one at noon, the small yellow one at dinner, and the 2 large yellow ones before bed. That seems like a lot," I said once, watching as Sarah sorted pills into a weekly organizer. "Dr. Phillips says it's necessary," she replied, not looking up from her task. "The disease is progressing, Dad. We need to stay on top of it." What choice did I have but to trust her? Margaret's condition continued to deteriorate. Some days she didn't know who I was. She'd look at me with frightened eyes and ask when her husband was coming home. Those moments felt like knives to the heart. "It's me, sweetheart," I'd say gently, taking her hand. "It's Tom. I'm right here." Sometimes recognition would flicker in her eyes, sometimes it wouldn't. Sarah was there through all of it, always patient, always caring. She'd coo soft reassurances to her mother, help her to bed, make sure she took her pills. She'd even started handling our finances, taking over the bills and paperwork when I admitted I was too distracted to manage it properly. "You have enough to worry about," she'd said, that concerned smile on her face. "Let me take care of this stuff. You just focus on being there for Mom." I signed the papers she put in front of me. I gave her access to our accounts. Why wouldn't I? She was our daughter, she was helping us. But then came last Tuesday. Sarah had heard about a neurologist in Asheville, Dr. Marcus Harrison, who was supposed to be one of the best in the region. I think we should get a second opinion, she'd said. Maybe Dr. Harrison will see something Dr. Phillips missed. It made sense. We tried everything Dr. Phillips suggested, and Margaret only seemed to get worse. A fresh perspective couldn't hurt. The drive to Asheville took about 2 hours. Margaret sat in the back seat, quiet and docile, staring out the window. Sarah drove, chatting pleasantly about nothing in particular, her hands tight on the steering wheel. I noticed she'd been more tense lately, but I'd attributed it to the stress of caregiving. Dr. Harrison's office was in a modern medical building on the outskirts of the city, a young man, maybe in his early 40s, with prematurely gray hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. He spent nearly an hour examining Margaret, running her through various cognitive tests, checking her reflexes, asking questions. Sarah and I sat in chairs against the wall, watching. Sarah's designer purse sat in her lap, and I noticed her fidgeting with the clasp. Open, close, a nervous habit I'd never seen before. Mr. and Mrs. Brennan, Dr. Harrison finally said, helping Margaret into a chair. I'd like to speak with you and your daughter in my office, Margaret. You can rest here for a moment. My nurse will bring you some water. We followed him into a small, neat office lined with medical books and diplomas. Sarah sat on my right, still clutching that purse. Dr. Harrison closed the door and moved behind his desk, but he didn't sit down. Instead, he stood there, shuffling some papers, glancing at the door. So, I said, breaking the silence, what do you think? Is there anything we can do differently? Dr. Harrison opened his mouth to respond, then closed it. He looked at Sarah, then at me, then at the door again. He seemed agitated, uncertain. I'd like to run some additional tests, he said carefully, blood work, in particular. There are some inconsistencies I'd like to explore. What kind of inconsistencies? Sarah asked, and I heard something sharp in her voice. Before Dr. Harrison could answer, his phone buzzed on the desk. He glanced at it, and his jaw tightened. Excuse me for just one moment, he said, moving toward the door. I need to check on another patient. As soon as he left, Sarah's phone rang. She pulled it from her purse, looked at the screen, and stood up quickly. It's the insurance company, she said. I've been waiting for this call all week. I need to take it. I'll just be a minute. She slipped out of the office, leaving me alone. I sat there, looking at the degrees on Dr. Harrison's wall, trying not to think about what inconsistencies might mean. Was Margaret's condition even worse than we thought? Was it something different entirely? A tumor, maybe? The door opened suddenly. I expected to see Dr. Harrison returning, but instead, he slipped inside quickly and closed the door behind him. He didn't go back to his desk. Instead, he moved close to me, so close I could smell the coffee on his breath, and I saw that his hands were shaking. That's when everything changed. Mr. Brennan, he whispered, his voice urgent and low, you need to get your wife away from your daughter immediately. I stared at him, certain I'd misheard. What? He leaned closer, his eyes darting to the door. Your daughter. You need to. The door opened. Sarah stood there, her phone still in her hand, that same concerned smile on her face that I'd seen 1,000 times over the past 2 years. But now, in the harsh fluorescent light of the office, it looked different, wrong somehow. Dr. Harrison straightened immediately, stepping back, his face going professionally neutral. Everything okay? Sarah asked, looking between us. Her knuckles on the phone were white. Yes, Dr. Harrison said, but his voice was strained. I was just explaining to your father that we'll need to schedule those additional tests. Sarah's smile widened. Of course. Whatever Mom needs. The rest of the appointment was a blur. Dr. Harrison gave us some paperwork, scheduled a follow-up, and showed us out. But as I shook his hand to the door, he pressed something into my palm. When I looked down later in the parking lot, it was his business card with a handwritten note on the back. Call me, alone. Tonight, the drive home was quiet. Margaret dozed in the back seat. Sarah hummed along to the radio, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. I kept replaying Dr. Harrison's whispered words. You need to get your wife away from your daughter immediately. It didn't make sense. Why would I need to get Margaret away from Sarah? Sarah was helping us. Sarah was sacrificing everything to take care of her mother. The suggestion was absurd, insulting even, but Dr. Harrison's hands had been shaking. And he'd looked afraid that evening, after Margaret was in bed and Sarah had retired to the guest room. I sat in my study with Dr. Harrison's card in my hand. It was almost 11 o'clock. Was it too late to call? But he'd said tonight. I dialed the number. He answered on the first ring, as if he'd been waiting. Mr. Brennan? Yes, I said quietly, even though I was alone. Dr. Harrison, what did you mean today? About my daughter. There was a long pause. I heard him breathing on the other end of the line. How well do you know your daughter's financial situation? He finally asked. The question threw me. What does that have to do with anything? Please, just answer. I thought about it. I don't know. She has a good job. She seems to do well. Has she asked you for money recently? No. She's been helping us. She even took over managing our finances so I wouldn't have to worry about it. Another pause, longer this time. Mr. Brennan, I'm going to ask you to trust me, even though we just met. Can you get your wife's medical records from Dr. Phillips? All of them, including the list of medications she's been prescribed. I suppose so, but why? And I need you to get a sample of the pills your daughter has been giving your wife. All of them. Can you do that without her knowing? My heart was pounding now. Dr. Harrison, you're scaring me. What's going on? I can't say more on the phone. But I'm concerned about what I observed today. Your wife's symptoms don't match her presentation. There are signs that suggest. He trailed off. Please, just get me those things, the records and the pills. Can you come back to my office on Friday? Alone? Yes, but you have to tell me. Friday, he said firmly. 2 o'clock, come alone. Don't tell your daughter about this call. He hung up. I sat there in the dark study, the phone still pressed to my ear, my mind racing. What had Dr. Harrison seen? What did Sarah's finances have to do with anything? And why did he want pill samples? The implications were trying to surface in my mind, but I kept pushing them back down. No, it was impossible. Sarah would never. She couldn't. But then I remembered the white knuckles on her purse, the tension in her shoulders. The way she'd looked at Dr. Harrison when he mentioned inconsistencies. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning, Wednesday, I waited until Sarah left to run errands. I need to pick up some groceries, she'd said, and I have a few work calls to make from the coffee shop. I'll be gone a couple hours. As soon as her car pulled out of the driveway, I moved fast. First, I called Dr. Phillips' office and requested copies of all of Margaret's medical records. They said it would take a few days, but I could pick them up Friday morning. Perfect. Then I went to the bathroom where Sarah kept the pill organizer. My hands were shaking as I opened it. 7 days of medications, each day divided into 4 time slots. So many pills, I'd never really counted them before. I took 1 pill from each slot, wrapping them carefully in tissue and placing them in a small plastic bag. Then I rearranged the remaining pills so it wouldn't be obvious any were missing. As I was closing the organizer, I heard a sound behind me. I spun around, my heart stopping. Margaret stood in the bathroom doorway, looking at me with clearer eyes than I'd seen in months. Tom, she said, and my name sounded almost normal in her mouth. What are you doing? Just checking Mom's pills, sweetheart, I said, forcing a smile. Making sure everything's organized. She stepped closer, looking at the organizer in my hands. Then she looked at me, and for just a moment, I saw something in her eyes. Fear, maybe. Or warning. Sarah. She started, then stopped, her brow furrowed with concentration, like she was trying to pull words from somewhere deep. Sarah. The pills. I don't. What about Sarah, honey? But the moment passed, the clarity faded from her eyes like fog rolling back in. She blinked, confused. Who are you? She asked, taking a step back. Where's my mother? And just like that, she was gone again. I spent the rest of the morning with Margaret, settling her in front of the TV with her favorite old movies, but my mind was elsewhere, turning over that brief moment of clarity. What had she been trying to tell me? When Sarah came home, arms full of grocery bags, that concerned smile on her face, I watched her differently, really watched her. She'd lost weight, I realized. Her clothes hung a bit loose, there were dark circles under her eyes that her makeup didn't quite hide, and when she thought I wasn't looking, her smile faded into something else. Something harder. How was Mom this morning? She asked, unpacking groceries. Fine, quiet. She's watching TV. Did she take her noon medication? Not yet, I was waiting for you. I'll handle it, Sarah said quickly, moving toward the bathroom. You should rest. Dad, you look tired. I watched her go, watched her prepare the pills with practiced efficiency, watched her bring them to Margaret with a glass of water and a gentle smile. Here you go, Mom. Time for your medicine. Margaret looked at the pills in Sarah's hand, and for just a second, I saw her shrink back, but Sarah was patient, coaxing, and eventually Margaret swallowed them all. Good job, Sarah said, stroking her mother's hair. That night, I lay in bed next to Margaret, who was sleeping deeply. Too deeply, maybe. I listened to her slow, heavy breathing and thought about Dr. Harrison's question. How well do you know your daughter's financial situation? I'd always assumed Sarah was doing well. She drove a nice car, wore expensive clothes, carried designer bags. But now that I thought about it, when had I last heard her talk about her job? About her life in Charlotte? About anything that wasn't related to Margaret's care? And she'd taken over our finances. She had access to all our accounts. No, I was being paranoid. This was Sarah, our daughter, the little girl who'd cried when her goldfish died, who'd brought us breakfast in bed every Mother's and Father's Day, who'd called us every Sunday from college, without fail. But Dr. Harrison's hands had been shaking. Thursday dragged by with painful slowness. I went through the motions of the day, trying to act normal, but I felt Sarah watching me. Or maybe I was watching her, it was hard to tell anymore. That evening, after dinner, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Did you get the pills? MH. Dr. Harrison. I texted back quickly. Yes, and records tomorrow morning. Good. 2 p.m. Friday. Very important you come alone. I deleted the messages and looked up to find Sarah watching me from across the room. Everything okay? She asked. Just a spam call, I said. She nodded slowly, but her eyes stayed on me a moment longer. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Margaret's moment of clarity. Sarah. The pills. What had she been trying to say? Around 2 in the morning, I got up to use the bathroom. As I passed the guest room, I saw light under the door. Sarah was still awake. I heard her voice, muffled but agitated. She was on the phone with someone. I shouldn't have listened. I know that, but I pressed my ear to the door. Can't wait much longer, Sarah was saying. I need access to the trust fund now. I don't care what the conditions are. There has to be a way. Silence as the other person responded. She's getting worse. The doctors are saying it could be months, maybe less. Yes, I know it's terrible, but we have to be practical. Once she's declared incompetent, I can. What do you mean, ethical concerns? You're my lawyer, just tell me what I need to do. I stepped back from the door, my heart hammering so hard I was sure she'd hear it. Trust fund, access. Declared incompetent. I stumbled back to bed, Margaret's peaceful breathing beside me now sounding like an accusation. How had I not seen this? How had I been so blind? But I still didn't want to believe it. Not really. There had to be another explanation. Friday morning came too slowly and too quickly at the same time. Sarah made breakfast, cheerful and chatty. While I pushed eggs around my plate, I need to run to the pharmacy, I said casually. We're low on my blood pressure medication. I can go for you, Sarah offered immediately. No, I need to get out of the house for a bit. Clear my head. You stay with Mom. Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly, but she nodded. Okay, don't be gone too long. Instead of the pharmacy, I drove to Dr. Phillips' office and picked up Margaret's medical records. The receptionist handed me a thick manila envelope. That's everything from the past 3 years, she said. Dr. Phillips wanted me to tell you he's sorry he couldn't help more. If you need anything else, just call. I thanked her and left, the envelope feeling like it weighed 100 pounds. I had 2 hours before my appointment with Dr. Harrison. I drove to a park and sat in my car, opening the medical records with shaking hands. I'm not a doctor, but I've always been good with details. It's what made me a successful accountant. And as I read through the files, I started to notice things. Dr. Phillips had prescribed 2 medications for Margaret initially, 2. But she was taking at least 7 pills a day. I checked the prescription dates. The last refill had been 14 months ago, so where were all these other pills coming from? There were notes from Dr. Phillips expressing concern about Margaret's rapid decline. He'd recommended a neurological consultation multiple times, starting almost a year ago, but according to his notes, Sarah had canceled those appointments, saying Margaret was too anxious about seeing specialists. My stomach churned as I continued reading. In his most recent note, from about 6 months ago, Dr. Phillips had written, patient's daughter reports continued cognitive decline. However, daughter seems resistant to recommended testing and second opinions. Have strongly advised neurological consultation. Daughter promises to schedule but has not followed through. Some concern about care situation. I closed the file and sat there, staring through the windshield at the park where families were playing. A father pushed his daughter on a swing. She was laughing, her hair flying. I remembered pushing Sarah on swings when she was small. She'd beg me to push her higher, and Margaret would call out, "Not too high, Tom, you'll scare her." But Sarah would just laugh and laugh, fearless and trusting. When had that little girl turned into someone I didn't know? At 2 o'clock exactly, I walked into Dr. Harrison's office. His receptionist seemed to be expecting me and led me directly to his personal office, closing the door behind me. Dr. Harrison stood when I entered. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept much either. "Did you bring everything?" he asked. I handed him the medical records and the bag of pills. He took them carefully, like they were evidence at a crime scene. "Which I was beginning to realize they might be. I'm going to be direct with you, Mr. Brennan," he said, sitting down and opening the medical file, "because I think you deserve honesty, and because time might be a factor." "A factor in what?" He looked up at me, his expression grave. "In saving your wife's life." The room tilted slightly. I gripped the arms of my chair. "When I examined Margaret on Tuesday," Dr. Harrison continued, "several things struck me as odd. Her symptoms are consistent with dementia, yes, but there were other signs, slight tremors, unusual pupil response, a certain lethargy that seemed more pharmaceutical than neurological. I don't understand. I've seen these patterns before, Mr. Brennan. About 10 years ago, I testified in a court case. A woman was slowly poisoning her mother-in-law to gain early access to an inheritance. She was using a combination of sedatives and other drugs to simulate dementia. The floor dropped out from under me. "No," I said. "No, Sarah wouldn't. She's our daughter. She's been taking care of Margaret. She's been." But even as I said it, I was remembering the phone call, the trust fund, the canceled appointments with specialists. Dr. Harrison's hands were trembling again as he opened the bag of pills. "I'm going to have these analyzed, but I want you to look at something." He spread out Margaret's medical records, pointing to the prescriptions. "These are the only 2 medications Dr. Phillips prescribed. This one is a low-dose memory supplement. This one is for blood pressure. Both are fairly benign, but she takes 7 pills a day," I said weakly. "Exactly." He pulled the pills from the bag, arranging them on his desk. "I'm willing to bet that when we analyze these, we'll find things that shouldn't be there. Sedatives, probably, maybe benzodiazepines, possibly some antipsychotics in low doses. Separately, they might not be fatal, but together, over time, they could create symptoms virtually indistinguishable from rapidly progressing dementia." I couldn't breathe. The office was spinning. "But why would— She's our daughter. You mentioned on the phone that she handles your finances now. Has she asked you to sign anything recently? Any power of attorney documents? Any changes to your will or trusts?" I thought back over the past months. The papers Sarah would slide in front of me at the dinner table. "Just some routine stuff, Dad. I need authorization to handle the medical bills. The lawyer said we should update the estate planning, just to be safe." I'd signed them all without really reading them. "Oh God," I whispered. Dr. Harrison leaned forward. "Mr. Brennan, I need you to listen to me very carefully. If I'm right about this, your daughter is committing a serious crime. But I need proof. The pill analysis will take a few days. In the meantime, you need to be very careful. Don't let on that you suspect anything. Don't confront her, and most importantly, don't let her give your wife any more of these medications." "How am I supposed to do that? Can you take your wife somewhere?" "Tell your daughter you need a few days away. She'd want to come with us. Then you'll have to be creative. Switch out the pills somehow. Throw them away when she's not looking. Whatever you do, Margaret cannot take any more of these." He paused. "And you should probably call the police." "I can't call the police on my own daughter without proof." "Then we'll get proof," Dr. Harrison said firmly. "But Mr. Brennan, if I'm right, your wife has been poisoned for possibly years. The longer this continues, the more dangerous it becomes. Some of the damage might already be permanent." I left his office in a daze. The drive home took forever and no time at all. I kept seeing Sarah's face. My baby girl, the daughter we'd loved and raised and sacrificed for. How could she do this? But I knew the answer: money. It always came down to money. When I got home, Sarah met me at the door. "You were gone a long time," she said, and there was an edge to her voice I'd never heard before. "Is everything okay?" "Fine. The pharmacy was busy. Long wait." She looked at the empty bag in my hand. "Where are your pills?" "They'll be ready tomorrow." They had to order them. Her eyes narrowed slightly, but she nodded. "Well, you're just in time. Mom needs her evening medication." I watched as she went to the bathroom and prepared the pills. My heart was racing. I had to do something, but what? When Sarah brought the pills to Margaret, I stood up quickly. "Actually, honey, I'll take care of that. You've been on your feet all day. Why don't you relax for a bit?" Sarah hesitated, the pills in her outstretched hand. "It's fine, Dad. I don't mind." "I insist," I said, taking the cup from her hand. "Go on, take a break." For a moment, we stood there, neither of us moving, her hand on the cup and mine too. something flickered in her eyes. Then she let go, smiled that concerned smile, and left the room. I looked down at the pills in my hand. 7 of them. 7 pills that were slowly killing my wife. Margaret looked up at me expectantly, her mouth already open. I couldn't let her take them. But if I didn't, Sarah would know something was wrong. I made a decision. Here you go, sweetheart, I said loudly, for Sarah's benefit. I brought the cup to Margaret's mouth, but as I did, I palmed the pills with my other hand. I tilted the cup as if she were swallowing them, then gave her just the water. Margaret drank and smiled vaguely. I pocketed the pills and showed Sarah the empty cup. All done, that night, I flushed the pills down the toilet. Then I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to Margaret breathe beside me. Was I crazy? Was I really believing that my own daughter was poisoning my wife? But everything fit: the rapid decline, the cancelled appointments, the financial control, the mysterious pills. Saturday morning, I put my plan into action. Sarah, I said at breakfast, I've been thinking, Margaret and I used to go away every spring to this little bed and breakfast in the mountains. Maybe some time away would do her good. Do us all good, really. Sarah's fork paused halfway to her mouth. That sounds nice, Dad. When were you thinking? Actually, I was thinking of leaving today, just for a few days. You could stay here, have some time to yourself. You've been working so hard. Oh, I don't think that's a good idea, Sarah said quickly. Mom's routine is really important. Disrupting it could make her worse. Plus, who would give her the medications? You know how specific the timing has to be. I can handle the medications. But what if something happens? What if she has an episode? Then I'll call you. Sarah set down her fork, her smile gone. Dad, I really don't think you should take Mom anywhere right now. She's too fragile. What if she wanders off? What if she gets confused and you can't handle it alone? Let's just keep things stable here. We stared at each other across the breakfast table, and I saw it clearly for the first time. The mask had slipped. This wasn't my concerned daughter. This was someone else entirely. I think the trip will be good for her, I said firmly. And I think it's a mistake, Sarah shot back. Then she seemed to catch herself, and the smile returned, though it didn't reach her eyes. I'm just worried about you both. That's all. Let's think about it for a few more days, okay? She wasn't going to let us leave. The realization hit me like a physical blow. She was going to find a way to keep Margaret here, keep her on the pills, keep control. I needed help. That afternoon, while Sarah was giving Margaret a bath, I locked myself in the study and called the one person I thought might believe me. Gerald Mackenzie had been my best friend for 30 years. We'd worked together at the accounting firm before I retired. He was smart, level-headed, and most importantly, he'd known our family forever. Tom, he said when he answered, how's Margaret doing? Gerald, I need your help. Something's wrong, something's very wrong, and I don't know what to do. I told him everything. The doctor's warning, the pills, the medical records, Sarah's phone call about the trust fund. As I talked, I expected him to tell me I was being paranoid, that I was seeing conspiracies where there were none, but he didn't. Jesus, Tom, he said quietly when I finished. How long has Sarah been handling your finances? About 1.5 years, and you gave her power of attorney. For medical decisions, yes, and I think maybe for financial ones too. She brought me papers to sign. I was so overwhelmed with Margaret's care. I trusted her. Tom, listen to me. You need to check your accounts. Right now, before you do anything else, you need to see exactly what's been happening with your money. How? She has all the passwords, the statements. You can call the bank directly. Tell them you've lost your login information. They'll verify your identity and let you access everything. Do it now, while she's occupied. My hands shook as I dialed our bank's customer service line. After navigating through several security questions, they got me into the online banking system. What I saw made my blood run cold. Over the past 18 months, there had been a series of transfers from our accounts. Small ones at first, a few thousand here and there, probably small enough that I wouldn't notice if I'd been paying attention. But they'd gotten larger, much larger. In the past 6 months alone, nearly $80,000 had been transferred out of our savings account to an account I didn't recognize. Gerald, I said, my voice barely working. She's been stealing from us. How much? I added up the transfers, my accountant's brain doing the math automatically even through the shock. About $140,000, maybe more. Some of these go back before I started looking. That's felony theft, Tom. Along with whatever she's been doing to Margaret. You need to call the police now, but she's our daughter. She's a criminal. Tom, I know this is hard, but you need to face facts. Sarah has been poisoning your wife and embezzling your money. This isn't about family anymore. This is about justice. And about saving Margaret's life. He was right. I knew he was right, but the thought of calling the police on Sarah, of watching her be arrested, of putting her in prison. Let me talk to Dr. Harrison first, I said. Let me get the pill analysis. Then I'll have real proof. Tom, please, Gerald, just give me until Monday. Let me have the weekend to figure out how to handle this, he sighed. Okay, but promise me that if anything escalates, if you feel like you or Margaret are in danger, you'll call 911 immediately. I promise. After I hung up, I sat there staring at the computer screen, at all those transfers, at the systematic theft of our life savings. We'd worked so hard for that money. We'd saved and planned and sacrificed. It was supposed to be for our retirement, for medical care if we needed it, for our grandchildren's education someday, and our daughter had stolen it. I heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly closed the browser. Sarah appeared in the doorway, her hair damp from helping Margaret with her bath. Mom's all clean and comfortable, she said. I'm going to order some dinner. Chinese, okay? Fine, I managed. She studied me for a moment. You look upset. Is everything all right? Just tired. Why don't you rest? I'll handle everything tonight. Mom's medications, dinner, getting her to bed. You just relax. The medications. She was still planning to give Margaret the pills, actually. I said, standing up, I'll help with dinner. I'd like to spend some time with Margaret, Dad. You really should. I'm helping, I said, more firmly than I'd intended. Sarah's expression hardened for just a second before the concerned smile returned. Of course, whatever you want. That evening was one of the strangest of my life. We ate Chinese food at the kitchen table, the three of us, like a normal family. Sarah chatted about nothing in particular. Margaret ate slowly, carefully, like a child learning to use chopsticks for the first time, and I watched them both, trying to reconcile what I knew with what I was seeing. This was the girl I'd taught to ride a bike. The teenager I'd helped with calculus homework, the young woman who'd cried in my arms when her first serious boyfriend broke her heart. When had she become capable of this? After dinner came the moment I'd been dreading. Time for Mom's evening pills, Sarah said brightly. Standing up, I'll get them, I said immediately. Dad, I can. I said I'll get them. We stared at each other. The air between us crackled with unspoken tension. Fine, Sarah said finally, but she followed me to the bathroom. I opened the pill organizer with her standing right behind me, so close I could feel her breath on my neck. I took out the evening pills. 4 of them tonight, large yellow capsules and small white tablets. Here, Sarah said, reaching for them. Let me do it. You might mix up the dosage. I've got it. I cupped the pills in my hand and walked back to the kitchen, Sarah following like a shadow. Margaret sat at the table, looking blankly at the fortune cookie wrapper in front of her. With Sarah watching, I had no choice. I had to make Margaret take the pills, or did I? Here you go, sweetheart, I said, putting the pills in Margaret's hand. Take these for me. Margaret looked at the pills, then at me. Something flickered in her eyes again, that same clarity I'd seen before. Tom, she whispered, and my name sounded almost right. Tom, I'm scared. It's okay, honey, just take your medicine. Her hand trembled, but she brought the pills to her mouth. I handed her the water glass. She swallowed. I watched her throat move. The pills were gone, or were they? Good job, Mom, Sarah said, patting Margaret's shoulder. Then she began clearing the dishes. I helped Margaret to the living room and settled her on the couch with the TV on. She leaned against me, her head on my shoulder, and I stroked her hair. I love you, I whispered. I'm so sorry. I'm going to fix this, I promise. She didn't respond, just closed her eyes and breathed slowly. When I went back to the kitchen, Sarah was loading the dishwasher. She glanced up at me. You seem stressed, Dad. I'm fine. Are you sure? Because you've been acting strange since we went to Asheville. Did Dr. Harrison say something that upset you? My heart skipped. Like what? I don't know, you just seem different. Like you're worried about something. I'm worried about your mother, that's all. Sarah closed the dishwasher and leaned against the counter, studying me. You know you can talk to me about anything, right? I'm here to help. I know, because sometimes caregivers start to feel paranoid. The stress can make them imagine things, see problems that aren't really there. It's very common. Her voice was soft, understanding. If you're feeling that way, we should talk about it. Maybe you need to see someone, a therapist, maybe, for the stress. I understood what she was doing, planting seeds, setting up a narrative. If I started making accusations, she'd say I was stressed, paranoid, maybe even developing dementia myself. Who would believe a confused old man over his caring, devoted daughter? I'm fine, I repeated. Just tired. Well, get some rest. I'll handle the overnight check-ins with Mom. I went to bed early, lying next to Margaret in the dark. I'd been married to this woman for 40 years. We'd built a life together. We'd raised a child together, and now that child was destroying us both. Around midnight, I heard Sarah's footsteps in the hallway. I heard her open our bedroom door, just a crack. I kept my breathing steady, pretending to be asleep. After a moment, the door closed. She was checking on us, making sure we were both sedated, both compliant. At 2 a.m, I slipped out of bed. I crept down the hall to the bathroom and opened the pill organizer. Tomorrow was Sunday. Sarah would try to give Margaret all these pills. I counted them, 14 pills scheduled across 4 time periods. Working quickly, quietly, I took them all and replaced them with vitamins from the medicine cabinet. They weren't perfect matches, but in dim light, they might pass. I flushed the real pills and went back to bed, my heart hammering. Sunday morning, I woke to find Margaret sitting up in bed, looking at me with clearer eyes than I'd seen in weeks. "Tom," she said, and my name was almost crisp. "Margaret, honey, how do you feel?" "Fuzzy but better. Like I'm waking up from a long sleep." She touched her forehead. "What's been happening?" "I can't remember. There are holes in my memory, big ones. What do you remember?" She concentrated. "I remember Sarah coming home to help. She was so kind, and then—" her face crumpled. "And then it gets foggy, like watching a movie with parts missing." "Tom, what's wrong with me?" "Nothing's wrong with you," I said, taking her hand. "Margaret, I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" "Of course, I need you to pretend to be confused today. Can you do that? When Sarah's around, I need you to act like you have been foggy, forgetful. It's very important." Fear crossed her face. "Why?" "Tom, you're scaring me." "I know, and I'm sorry, but I promise I'll explain everything soon. Right now, I just need you to trust me and do what I'm asking. Can you do that?" She searched my face, and I saw my Margaret there, my sharp, intelligent wife. "Yes," she said finally. "Yes, I can do that." We heard footsteps in the hallway. "Sarah, remember," I whispered, confused. Margaret's expression went slack, her eyes vacant. The transformation was heartbreaking and perfect. Sarah appeared in the doorway with her morning smile. "Good morning, how is everyone today?" "She had a restless night," I said. "I don't think she slept well." "Oh no, well, let's get her morning medication in her. That should help." I watched Sarah administer the vitamin pills, my heart in my throat. Would she notice? But she didn't. She was too confident, too sure of her routine. Margaret took the fake pills obediently, playing her part perfectly. As the morning progressed, I watched Margaret carefully. She maintained her confused act around Sarah, but when Sarah left the room, clarity would return to her eyes. She'd look at me with questions I couldn't yet answer. By afternoon, Margaret was noticeably more alert. Her movements were less sluggish, her words, when she spoke, came easier. "She's having a good day," Sarah remarked, a slight edge in her voice. "That's nice to see," yes, I agreed, but I could see Sarah watching Margaret more closely, a small furrow between her eyebrows. That evening, as Sarah prepared the dinner pills, she paused. "Dad, have you been in the medicine cabinet?" "What?" "No, why?" She held up one of the pills I'd substituted. "This doesn't look quite right." My blood ran cold. "It looks fine to me." Sarah rolled it between her fingers, studying it. Then she looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw the moment when she knew that I knew. The mask dropped completely. No more concerned smile, no more caring daughter. Her face went hard and cold. "When did you figure it out?" she asked quietly. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. "Figure what out?" "Don't play dumb, Dad. It doesn't suit you. When did you know?" "Know what, Sarah?" "That you've been poisoning your mother. That you've stolen over $140,000 from us. That you've been systematically destroying our lives for your own financial gain." She flinched slightly, but her expression didn't change. "I needed the money." "You needed it? You were stealing from your own parents. You weren't using it. It was just sitting there in accounts, doing nothing. And I had debts, Dad, serious debts. If I didn't pay them back, there would have been consequences. So you poisoned your mother." "I wasn't poisoning her. I was just—" keeping her calm, manageable. The medications helped with her anxiety. She didn't have anxiety. You gave her dementia. You destroyed her mind. It's not permanent, Sarah said, her voice rising. I researched it. Once she stops taking the pills, she'll recover. Mostly, I wasn't trying to kill her. I was just buying time until I could access the trust fund that's meant for our long-term care. That trust fund. You're both going to die eventually anyway. Why should that money sit locked up for years when I need it now? I have a life to live. I have debts to pay. It's not fair that you get to hoard money while I'm drowning. I stared at my daughter, this stranger wearing Sarah's face, and felt something break inside me. Who are you? I whispered. I'm your daughter trying to survive. Do you know what it's like having everyone expect you to be perfect all the time? Having to live up to Tom and Margaret Brennan's golden child? I made mistakes, Dad. I got into debt, bad debt, and instead of coming to you and hearing about responsibility and consequences and disappointment, I tried to fix it myself. By destroying your mother. I was going to stop. Once I got access to the trust, I was going to slowly reduce the medications, let her recover. You both would have been fine, and I would have been saved, and no one needed to know anything. But we do know, I said, and it's over, Sarah. It's all over, she laughed, a harsh sound, is it? Are you going to call the police on your own daughter? Are you going to put me in prison? Because if you do, everyone will know. Everyone will know that Tom Brennan's daughter is a thief and a criminal, I finished. The word you're looking for is criminal. I'm your daughter, she screamed. Doesn't that mean anything to you? You stopped being my daughter when you decided to poison my wife. We stood there, facing each other across the kitchen, and I saw tears on her face, but I couldn't tell if they were real or just another manipulation. What happens now? She asked finally. Now. Now you leave, you pack your things, and you get out of this house. And if I don't? Then I call the police right now. I have evidence, Sarah. Dr. Harrison has the pills. I have the bank records. I have your mother getting better by the day now that she's not being drugged. It's over. Sarah wiped her eyes. Her face went cold again, calculating. If you turn me in, I'll make sure everyone knows you neglected Mom, that you were the one who was supposed to be watching her, protecting her, and you failed. I'll say you're the one who gave her the wrong medications. I'll say you're suffering from dementia yourself and are making false accusations because you're confused. No one will believe you, won't they? I'm the devoted daughter who gave up her life to help her dying parents. You're the elderly man under tremendous stress, possibly showing signs of cognitive decline himself. Who do you think a jury will believe? My phone was in my pocket. I'd been recording the conversation. I pulled it out and held it up. Every word you just said is recorded. Your confession, your threats. All of it. Sarah's face went white. You can't do that. That's illegal, actually, in this state. Only one party needs to consent to recording, and I consent. For a moment, I thought she might lunge at me, try to grab the phone, but instead, she just stood there, deflating like a balloon. I'm $180,000 in debt, she said quietly. Gambling, online poker, I thought I could win it back, but it just got worse. The people I owe money to, they're not patient people, Dad. If I don't pay them, they'll hurt me, maybe kill me. Then you should have come to us. We would have helped you, would you? Really? Or would you have lectured me and told me to face the consequences of my actions? Both, I said honestly, but we would have helped you anyway, because that's what families do. They don't poison each other. Sarah picked up her purse from the counter. That expensive designer purse she'd been carrying for months. This isn't over, she said. You think you've won, but you haven't. I'll fight this. I'll hire lawyers. You'll do what you need to do, I interrupted, but you'll do it from somewhere else. You have 1 hour to pack and leave. She stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked out of the kitchen. I heard her footsteps on the stairs, heard her moving around in the guest room. I went to Margaret, who was sitting in the living room. She'd heard everything. Tears streamed down her face. Our baby, she whispered. Tom, our baby girl. I know, I said, sitting beside her and pulling her close. I know. Is she really capable of this? Did we raise someone who could do this? I don't know, Margaret. I honestly don't know. 45 minutes later, Sarah came downstairs with 2 suitcases. She looked at us sitting together on the couch, and for just a moment, I saw something in her face. Regret, maybe. Or just fear of what was coming. I'm sorry, she said. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. Where will you go? Margaret asked, her voice small. "I have a friend in Charlotte. I'll figure something out." She moved toward the door, then stopped. "Are you really going to turn me in?" I looked at my wife, her hand in mine, her mind slowly clearing after months of chemical fog. I thought about all the moments she'd lost, the memories that had been stolen from her. I thought about the life-saving Sarah had taken, the trust she'd violated, the family she'd destroyed. "Yes," I said. "I'm going to turn you in." Sarah's face crumpled. "Daddy, please, don't," I said sharply. "You lost the right to call me that when you decided to poison your mother. Leave, Sarah, just leave." She stood there for another moment, then opened the door and walked out into the evening. We watched through the window as she put her suitcases in her car, got in, and drove away. When her taillights disappeared down the street, Margaret let out a sound that was half sob, half gasp. "What do we do now?" she asked. "Now we call the police, and Dr. Harrison. And we start putting our lives back together." Monday morning, Dr. Harrison called with the analysis of the pills. As he'd suspected, they contained a cocktail of sedatives, benzodiazepines, and low-dose antipsychotics. Taken together over time, they would indeed create symptoms virtually indistinguishable from rapidly progressing dementia. "The good news," Dr. Harrison said, "is that most of the effects should be reversible. Margaret's mind should clear over the next few weeks. She might have some permanent memory loss from the period when she was heavily drugged, but her cognitive function should return largely intact. And the bad news? The bad news is that another few months of this, and the damage might have been permanent." "You stopped it just in time, Mr. Brennan. I filed a police report that afternoon. Detective Lisa Chen from the Financial Crimes Unit took my statement, reviewed the bank records, listened to the recording of Sarah's confession, and examined Dr. Harrison's analysis. This is one of the worst cases of elder abuse I've seen," she said, shaking her head, "and the fact that it was done by a family member. I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan. This must be incredibly difficult. Will you arrest her? We'll get a warrant issued today. Do you know where she's staying?" I gave them the address of Sarah's friend in Charlotte. Part of me felt like a traitor, but a larger part knew this was justice, finally, for what she'd done to Margaret. The next few days were surreal. News crews showed up at our house after the story broke. "Daughter accused of poisoning mother in elaborate fraud scheme," the headlines read. Our phone rang constantly. Friends we hadn't heard from in years called to express shock and support. Sarah was arrested on Thursday evening. The mugshot ran on the local news. She looked small and scared, nothing like the confident woman in designer clothes who'd moved into our home 2 years ago. Her lawyer held a press conference claiming Sarah was the victim of a misunderstanding, that she'd been trying to help her parents, that any financial irregularities were simple mistakes. But the evidence was overwhelming. Margaret recovered slowly but steadily. Each day, more of the fog lifted. She started remembering things. Not everything, not the months when she'd been most heavily drugged, but enough to know what had been stolen from her. "I remember being aware sometimes," she told me one evening, about a week after Sarah had left. "Like being trapped inside my own body. I'd try to speak, try to move normally, but it was like pushing through thick mud, and Sarah would be there, smiling, giving me more pills. I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't articulate it, couldn't fight it. I'm so sorry I didn't see it sooner." "How could you have known? She's our daughter, we're supposed to be able to trust her." The legal process moved forward. The prosecutor charged Sarah with elder abuse, fraud, theft, and several other counts. The evidence was damning. The pills, the bank records, the recording of her confession. Dr. Harrison's testimony about Margaret's miraculous recovery once the medication stopped. Sarah's lawyer tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor wasn't interested. This case had garnered too much attention. They were going to make an example of her. The trial was scheduled for 6 months later. During that time, Margaret and I tried to rebuild our lives. We changed all our passwords and account numbers. We worked with the bank to recover what money we could, though much of it was already gone, paid to Sarah's gambling debts and creditors. Gerald helped us find a good lawyer to review all the documents Sarah had made us sign. Fortunately, most of them could be invalidated since they'd been signed under duress and false pretenses. The power of attorney was revoked. The changes to our will were reversed. We went to counseling, both together and separately. The therapist said we were experiencing a complicated grief, mourning the daughter we thought we had while dealing with the reality of who she actually was. "She's not dead," Margaret said during one session, tears streaming down her face. "But she's gone anyway. The Sarah we knew never existed. Or maybe she did once, and we just don't know when she changed." I thought about that a lot. When had Sarah become capable of this? Had it been gradual, or was there a specific moment when she'd made the decision to destroy us for money? I'd probably never know, the trial began on a cold November morning. Margaret and I sat in the courtroom, watching as our daughter was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit. She'd lost weight. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. No designer clothes, no expensive purse. She looked young and scared. She saw us and her face crumpled. She mouthed something. Maybe I'm sorry. Maybe I love you, I couldn't tell, and I looked away. The prosecutor was thorough and merciless. They presented the evidence methodically, the medical records showing no prescriptions for the pills Sarah had been administering, the bank records showing the systematic theft. Dr. Harrison's expert testimony about the poisoning, Margaret's testimony about her recovery, and the recording. That damning recording of Sarah confessing to everything. Sarah's lawyer argued that she'd been under extreme stress, that the gambling addiction was a mental illness, that she'd never intended permanent harm. They painted her as a desperate woman who'd made terrible choices but didn't deserve to be punished like a hardened criminal. The jury didn't buy it. After 3 days of deliberation, they returned with guilty verdicts on all counts. At sentencing, the judge looked at Sarah with barely concealed disgust. "What you did to your parents," he said, "represents one of the most fundamental betrayals of trust I've seen in my years on the bench. You took advantage of their love for you, their faith in you, to systematically abuse and rob them. The fact that you're their daughter makes this worse, not better. You're sentenced to 12 years in state prison on the elder abuse and fraud charges, with additional time for the theft charges. Total sentence, 18 years, Margaret gasped beside me. Sarah's face went white. 18 years. She'd be 52 when she got out. Additionally, the judge continued, you're ordered to pay full restitution of $180,000 to your parents, plus damages, and you're forbidden from contacting the victims for the duration of your sentence and for 10 years following your release. Sarah started crying then, big heaving sobs. Her lawyer put an arm around her shoulders. The bailiff led her away, and she looked back at us one final time. I didn't look away this time. I met her eyes and saw everything there. Regret, fear, anger, shame. But it was too late for any of it to matter. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. I read a brief statement. Justice has been served today. My wife and I can now begin to truly heal. We want to thank Detective Chen, Dr. Harrison, and the prosecutor's office for their tireless work on this case. We hope our story will help other families recognize the signs of elder abuse, even when it comes from unexpected sources. Do you forgive your daughter? Someone shouted. I paused, Margaret's hand in mine. I hope that someday I can, I said honestly, but not today. Today is for justice. Today is for my wife, who lost months of her life to a crime that never should have happened. We drove home in silence. The house felt different now, cleaner somehow. Despite everything, the poison was gone, literally and figuratively. That evening, Margaret and I sat on our back porch, watching the sunset. She'd made us tea, something she hadn't been able to do in 2 years. Her hands were steady on the cup. Do you regret it? She asked, turning her in. No, I said immediately. Do you? She thought about it for a long time. Part of me does. The mother part that remembers rocking her to sleep when she was a baby, teaching her to read, watching her graduate, that part wishes I could have saved her somehow, but the rest of me knows you did the right thing. She made her choices, and if we'd protected her from the consequences, she never would have learned. Never would have changed. Maybe this way, after 18 years, she'll come out a different person, maybe, I said, though I doubted it. We sat there as the sky darkened, two survivors of a crime that never should have happened, perpetrated by someone who should have loved us most. Margaret's recovery continued over the following months. By Christmas, she was almost back to her old self. She returned to volunteering at the library, rejoined her book club, started making plans for the future. I want to travel, she announced one morning over breakfast. All the places we talked about. Ireland, Scotland, France. I lost 2 years of my life, Tom. I'm not losing any more, so we traveled. We spent 3 weeks in Ireland the following spring, driving through green countryside and staying in small bed and breakfasts. We went to Scotland and walked through ancient castles. We spent a month in France, eating good food and drinking better wine. We were healing, but we never forgot. On the first anniversary of the trial, Margaret and I started a non-profit organization dedicated to raising awareness about elder abuse. We spoke at conferences, wrote articles, consulted with lawmakers about strengthening protection laws. We turned our tragedy into purpose. We never heard from Sarah directly. The court order forbade it, but we heard reports through her lawyer. She was working in the prison library, taking correspondence courses, seeing a therapist. Whether any of it meant she'd truly changed, we'd never know. 5 years after the trial, on a warm Tuesday evening, Margaret and I were having dinner when she said something that surprised me. I've been thinking about Sarah. I set down my fork. We rarely talked about her directly anymore. What about her? She has 13 more years in prison. She'll be 52 when she gets out. No career, no money, no family. That's a death sentence in a different way. She earned it, Margaret, I know, but she's still our daughter. Somewhere under all the terrible choices, there's still the little girl we raised. And I wonder if maybe, after enough time has passed, after she's served her sentence and shown she's changed, maybe we could forgive her. I asked gently, not forget, never forget, but maybe forgive eventually, in time. I reached across the table and took her hand. If that's what you need to heal, then we'll do it, but not now. Not yet, she agreed, but maybe someday. 10 years passed. Margaret turned 72, vital and sharp. I turned 75, slowing down a bit but still active. We traveled, we worked on our nonprofit, we spent time with the friends who'd stood by us through everything. Sarah was released after serving 15 years, 3 years off for good behavior. We received a letter from her lawyer 2 weeks after her release. She'd found a job at a library in another state. She was living in a halfway house. She was attending Gamblers Anonymous meetings and seeing a therapist. She wanted to respect the no-contact order, but she wanted us to know she was trying to build a different life. And she wanted to know if, someday, when enough time had passed, there might be a chance for us to talk. Margaret and I discussed it for months. I'm not ready, I said. I don't know if I'll ever be ready. I think I am, Margaret said. Or I want to be, Tom. She poisoned me. She stole from us. She betrayed us in every possible way, but carrying this anger, this hatred, it's poisoning me all over again. I need to let it go. Letting it go doesn't mean letting her back in, I know, but maybe it means having one conversation. Hearing what she has to say, seeing if there's any genuine remorse there. In the end, we compromised. On the 15-year anniversary of the day Dr. Harrison had whispered his warning, we agreed to meet Sarah for coffee. Public place, 1 hour. No promises beyond that. She walked into the coffee shop looking older than her years. Her hair, once so carefully styled, was showing gray. She wore simple clothes from a discount store. She saw us and stopped, tears already forming in her eyes. We sat down at a corner table, the three of us, and for a long moment, no one spoke. "Thank you for coming," Sarah finally said, her voice rough. "I wasn't sure you would. We almost didn't," I said honestly. "I understand." She twisted her hands in her lap. "I've spent 15 years thinking about what to say to you, rehearsing it in my mind, but now that you're here, all I can think is that nothing I say will ever be enough." "Then why did you want to meet?" Margaret asked. "Because I need you to know that I understand what I did. I understand that I took 2 years of your life, Mom. I understand that I betrayed every bit of trust and love you ever gave me. I understand that I destroyed our family for money that I gambled away stupidly. I understand all of it. Do you?" I asked. "Because understanding and truly comprehending are different things, I know, and you're right to doubt me. I've been clean from gambling for 15 years. I've been in therapy for 15 years. I've had nothing but time to think about who I was and who I want to be. But words are cheap, I know that, so I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking to be part of your lives again. I'm just asking for the chance to show you, over time, that I'm not that person anymore." Margaret was crying silently. I took her hand. "I forgive you," Margaret said suddenly, and my head whipped toward her. "Margaret, I forgive you," she repeated, looking at Sarah. "Not because you deserve it, not because what you did was excusable, but because I deserve to be free of the hatred. I forgive you, Sarah, but forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It just means I'm choosing to let go of the poison you put in me, all of it, so I can live the rest of my life in peace." Sarah was sobbing now, her shoulders shaking. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." I looked at my wife, this incredible woman who'd survived so much, and then at my daughter, this broken person who'd caused so much pain. "I'm not there yet," I said. "I can't forgive you yet, Sarah. Maybe someday, but not today." "I understand," Sarah said, wiping her eyes. "I'll take what I can get." We sat there for another half hour, talking carefully about neutral things. Sarah's job at the library, our travels, the work we'd done with the nonprofit. We didn't talk about the past, about the trial, about the lost years. That was still too raw. When we left, Sarah didn't try to hug us. She just stood in the parking lot, watching as we got into our car. "Do you think she's really changed?" Margaret asked as we drove away. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Time will tell," and it has. It's been 3 years since that first meeting. We've had coffee with Sarah 6 more times, always public places, always short meetings. She respects our boundaries, she's kept her job, stayed clean from gambling, built a quiet life. She's paid back $25,000 of the restitution so far. It's not much, considering she owes $180,000, but it's something. It shows she's trying. I'm not sure I'll ever fully forgive her. The wound is too deep, but I'm learning to let go of the anger, like Margaret did. I'm learning that sometimes justice and healing aren't the same thing, and both have their place. Margaret is 75 now, sharp as ever. We joke that she's making up for those lost years by living twice as fully. We've published a book about our experience. We've helped change elder abuse laws in 3 states. We've spoken to thousands of people about the warning signs, about the importance of staying vigilant, about how abuse can come from unexpected places. We've taken our tragedy and turned it into purpose. We've survived, and more than that, we've thrived. Sometimes late at night, I think about that moment in Dr. Harrison's office when everything changed, when he leaned forward with trembling hands and whispered words that shattered my world. "You need to get your wife away from your daughter immediately." If he hadn't been brave enough to say it, if I hadn't been smart enough to investigate, if Margaret hadn't been strong enough to survive. But he did, I was. She did, and we're here now, on the other side of the nightmare, holding hands on our back porch as the sun sets, 2 survivors who refuse to let betrayal be the end of their story. Do you ever regret it? Margaret asks, echoing the question from years ago. Everything that happened after you made that call to the police. I think about Sarah in prison, the trial, the painful process of healing, the years of therapy and tears and slowly learning to trust again. No, I say, I don't regret it. What she did was wrong. The consequences were just, and even though it broke our family, it saved your life. So no, I don't regret it. Margaret leans her head on my shoulder. Neither do I. We sit there as darkness falls, 2 people who lost a daughter but found justice, who experienced betrayal but chose healing, who were poisoned but refused to be destroyed. And tomorrow, we'll wake up and live another day in the life we fought so hard to reclaim. That's all we can do. That's all any of us can do. Live, heal, move forward. And maybe, just maybe, forgive, but never ever forget. Let me know in the comments where you have watched it from and what you would have done if you were in my place. If you loved my story, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It inspires us to share more such stories with you.